For Taiwan, it's not a question of if China will eventually invade, but when. It could still be some time away, or it might happen within the next 12 months. Either way, the island territory wants to be ready to defend itself as well as it possibly can. In order to do that, it's taking some serious inspiration from another country that has had to deal with aggression from a significantly larger and stronger neighbour, Ukraine. Ukraine's mastery of drone warfare has helped Kyiv's forces achieve the impossible, turning the tide of a conflict that seemed destined to end in a resounding Russian victory. And if drones can help Ukraine fend off Russia, then perhaps they could do something similar for Taiwan with China. That's why the Taiwanese military has made the call to create a drone Hellscape to stop an invasion before it even begins. That term, Hellscape, was coined back in August 2023 by then Commander of United States Indo-Pacific Command, John Aquilino, and was described in detail by his successor, Admiral Samuel Paparo, in an interview with the Washington Post. I want to turn the Taiwan Strait into an unmanned hellscape using a number of classified capabilities so that I can make their lives utterly miserable for a month, which buys me the time for the rest of everything. To be more precise, the Hellscape strategy envisions a battlefield absolutely filled with drones, tens of thousands of them in all forms, from unmanned ships and submarines in the water to aircraft dotting the skies, all working in tandem to engage thousands of enemy targets all at once. It's an idea that the US has been working on for quite some time, with the Department of Defense taking big steps towards procuring and fielding enormous amounts of unmanned systems, having learned just how effective they can be from the war in Ukraine. The department also began its Replicator initiative in 2023, aimed at developing new unmanned system capabilities to help America and its allies stay one step ahead of their enemies in this domain. Because Hellscape isn't just about having huge amounts of drones, it's also about enabling them to work together. That's why the US Navy has also been working on programs like Project Overmatch, which focuses on combining information flows from different drones and units into a single picture, turning the Hellscape from a cluster of independent unmanned systems into a single coalesced force sharing the same aims and information. In theory, should the US gain credible intelligence regarding an invasion of Taiwan in the days and weeks prior, it could rapidly reposition its unmanned assets like MQ-9 Reaper UAVs from the Philippines and unmanned surface vessels USVs from various parts of the Pacific region towards Taiwan. Since they're relatively small and lightweight, assets like these are often quite easy to move compared to larger military vehicles and equipment. Once in place, thousands of unmanned systems could be launched from the likes of submarines, surface ships and aircraft around the region over the course of the initial days and weeks of the war. Their objective wouldn't be to completely destroy the opposing force. It would simply be to delay it and make any sort of progression as difficult to achieve as possible, buying time for allies to mobilize and other larger assets to arrive in the region. That's exactly what Taiwan needs, but it's not counting on America alone to defend its interests. It's taking steps to be able to create its very own Hellscape. Entire fleets of unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, and unmanned attack boats are being built across the territory's military facilities as we speak. The idea is simple. Should China launch an invasion, Taiwan's drone army will allow it to stay one step ahead. Taking to the air and the seas, these unmanned vehicles will be able to spot any signs of enemy movement in advance. From there, Taiwan can orchestrate a rapid response, literally flooding the Taiwan Strait with vast swarms of drones, in addition to missiles and artillery fire, in order to absolutely overwhelm the invading force, raining down fire from the skies while also striking from the water to make the amphibious assault far deadlier than China could have ever imagined. Like their US counterparts, Taiwanese tacticians were inspired by the remarkable achievements of the Ukrainian armed forces. Until that war began, Taipei perhaps hadn't quite realized the value that drones could hold, with Lieutenant General Wang Wenqi, Director General of Strategic Planning for the Taiwanese Defense Ministry, recently telling lawmakers, "Our drone and counter-drone efforts started relatively late, and initially we were trying things out as we went along. Now, however, Taiwan has absolutely understood that drone warfare could be the difference maker it needs to withstand a war with China. Wanting to become the next big drone superpower, just like Ukraine before it, the Taiwanese Ministry of Economic Affairs, MOEA, announced in May 2026 that it intends to produce 100,000 drones per month by 2030, with half of those being exported to strengthen the country's economy and the remaining half remaining in Taiwan for national defense and security. According to Xiao Shu Shui, Director General of the MOEA's Industrial Development Administration, Taiwan is currently able to produce a maximum of around 15,000 units, with around 20% of them being exported, but it wouldn't take much to scale up production. He also noted that, even though China is able to create cheap consumer-grade drones in vast quantities quite easily, thanks to its large-scale production infrastructure, Taiwan is still able to compete quite strongly when it comes to military-grade UAVs, with the likes of anti-jamming features and autonomous flight systems. In June 2026, Taiwan took its commitment to drone warfare one step further. The country's executive branch pitched a whopping $6.6 billion budget for the procurement of over 200,000 domestically made unmanned systems designed to defend the island against invaders. To be more specific, the proposal would cover the acquisition of 208,200 one-way strike drones, along with an additional 1,446 reconnaissance drones and a batch of 1,320 unmanned surface vessels, as detailed by the Taiwanese Ministry of Defense. The Secretary-General of the country's National Security Council, Joseph Wu, said that these drones would form an unmanned shield for the island, with Minister of National Defense Wellington Koo adding that the systems would significantly improve maritime domain awareness and targeting capability. This all represents quite a big shift in Taiwanese military strategy. Taiwan has always known that the threat of Chinese invasion was real, with Xi Jinping stating on numerous occasions that the reunification of China and Taiwan is, in his words, unstoppable. Yet for years, Taipei's tactics focused mostly on quite conventional methods to counter an unexpected attack from the mainland. The country invested heavily in large military platforms like fighter jets and heavy tanks, the kind of equipment needed to fight a conventional battle. It was in effect preparing to confront China head-on in the water and along the coastlines, engaging in symmetrical combat and relying on innate advantages of geography to provide the all-important edge its forces needed to keep pace with their enemy. Over time, Taiwan has realized that a much smarter approach is to embrace asymmetric warfare instead, because when war with China comes, it will not be a fair fight. The Chinese People's Liberation Army, PLA, will be far larger, stronger and better funded, with more aircraft, vessels, ground vehicles and far more troops too, plus massive stockpiles of missiles and other long-range munitions. Indeed, there's a clear reason why China sits third in the global firepower military strength rankings, while Taiwan is down in 22nd place. It's a similar sort of disparity to Russia, second in the rankings, and Ukraine 20th. And just as Ukraine rapidly realized it was never going to defeat Russia in a conventional conflict, Taiwan has also had to accept it cannot go toe-to-toe with such a mighty force. But that doesn't mean it can't compete with it. It's simply a question of choosing the right tactics and the right equipment, which is why Taipei has been so keen to move away from conventional firepower and towards the sort of mobile, distributed and unmanned systems that can help it defend itself more effectively, including anti-ship missiles, mobile air defenses and sea mines. And that's where the drone Hellscape comes in, with unmanned systems potentially holding the most value and potential to shift the conflict in Taiwan's favor when the time finally comes, allowing it to emulate Ukraine's David versus Goliath approach to its own war with Russia. There are, however, several challenges standing in Taipei's way. But before we dig into this, quick side note. The Military Show brings you the full picture, not just headlines. Hit subscribe to stay ahead of the curve. Taiwan is making the right moves. From 2022 onwards, through its Sea-Air Combat Power Improvement Plan, it's made massive investments in the kinds of weapons and military equipment it will need to hold off a Chinese invasion. It's clearly serious about drone warfare too, with Mick Ryan, retired Australian Major General, who's extensively studied the military strategies of Ukraine and Taiwan, noting that Taipei has clearly realized that drones will be important in all the domains, in all the phases. Numerous American defense firms such as General Atomics and Kratos have been selling UAVs for Taipei and are even in negotiations to begin co-production efforts to bolster the island's domestic defenses. Altius attack drones, also created by a US firm, Anduril, have also been seen being used in training exercises in Taiwan, and MQ-9 SeaGuardian drones arrived in the region in June as well. But acquiring drones is just the first part of the puzzle. There are two more challenges to overcome before war breaks out, if Taiwan wants to make the best possible use of its expanding unmanned army. The first of those challenges is for Taiwan soldiers to learn how to work with drones efficiently. This is something that many military forces all over the world are working on at the moment. They've seen how powerful and influential drones can be on the battlefield due to the events of the Russia-Ukraine war, and they don't want to be left behind. Many are even reaching out directly to Ukrainian defense firms and tactical planners for advice and insights on how best to integrate unmanned vehicles into their operations and what kinds of training regimes to establish to get their troops up to speed with these new technologies. Ukraine had to learn all this the hard way, under pressure in a live conflict. Its armed forces had no choice, no respite, no breathing room. They simply had to figure out how drones worked and how to use them to disrupt their enemies' operations on the fly, while dealing with daily bombardments. Taiwan doesn't have that. On the one hand, that's a positive. It means that Taiwan's forces still have a certain level of freedom and a certain amount of time to educate themselves and improve their standards. On the other hand, it can also invite a degree of complacency. As Xu Xiaowang, an associate research fellow at the Institute for National Defense and Security Research in Taipei, explained, "It's very difficult because they haven't experienced the crucible of war. The army's frontline military operations must undergo a total change from the past. In the Russia-Ukraine war, if you fire one round, you won't have a chance to fire a second if you just stay lined up there without moving on." Fortunately, Taiwan's tacticians appear eager to ensure that complacency doesn't set in. Indeed, during the country's Kuang annual military exercises, which were held in early August, soldiers were often seen working with unmanned systems of various kinds. The country's military invited reporters to observe this 10-day program of military exercises, with Major General Lu Wen-yuan affirming that the country's armed forces are being trained not only on deploying drones, but combating them as well. A recent drill also involved units scrambling to defend islands off Taiwan's eastern coast by using drones to hunt down enemy forces. And during Kuang, the country's president, Lai Ching-te, was on hand to observe another exercise involving troops testing two types of prototype strike drones. On top of all of this, Taiwan has also established its own Littoral Combat Command, aimed at integrating drones, artillery and mobile missiles into a vast coastal shield, defending the island against the Chinese threat. These are all steps in the right direction, but there's still some way to go before Taiwan can be ranked alongside Ukraine as a true champion of drone warfare. Stacy Pettyjohn, senior fellow at the Center for a New American Security and the author of a recent study of Taiwan's drone warfare strategy, has urged the country's tacticians to not get too focused on the technology more than the equally essential organizational and doctrinal changes that are needed to implement a Hellscape concept. In other words, Taiwan needs to find the right balance between investing in new technologies and procuring vast amounts of drones, while also adjusting its military practices to use them as effectively and intelligently as possible. Only then will it be in a position where it can achieve its aims of making China's amphibious assault as costly as possible and making Beijing work for every single inch of progress across the Taiwan Strait. Now, the second big challenge Taiwan needs to address in the coming months is making sure it has enough stockpiles of drones, plus the ability to make many more by the time the invasion begins. Why? Because if and when China does invade, a big part of Beijing's strategy will likely revolve around isolating Taiwan as quickly as possible. The PLA will want to blockade the island, sealing off access so that no external support can enter. That means that Taiwan may not be able to rely on America and other allies sending shipments of their own drones or other military equipment to help the island defend itself. In effect, Taiwan could be in a situation where it has only itself to rely on. And if that happens, it's going to need huge amounts of drones that are ready to take to the air and water right away, as well as drone production facilities that are ready and waiting to roll thousands more of the production lines in the days and weeks to follow. Thankfully, as mentioned earlier, Taiwan's leadership has already identified these two issues as top priorities. Indeed, both sides of the country's political landscape are in absolute agreement regarding the need to make more drones as rapidly as possible. Sure, political friction recently led to a record 260-day budget deadlock, but the cabinet countered by pushing through a $6.6 billion 6-year special budget, specifically to safeguard domestic drone procurement. What matters is that the drones get made, and that's already happening. Taiwanese manufacturers like Thunder Tiger are already steaming ahead in designing and developing new models to help the country achieve its military ambitions. US firms like Shield AI are also playing an active role in assisting them. Taiwan is also selling increasing amounts of drones each year as it aims to make itself a major player in the sector and bring much needed funds into the island's defense sector. In the first 3 months of 2026 alone, for example, Taiwan exported a whopping $115 million worth of drones. That's more than it managed in the whole of 2025. Many of these drones have been sold to the Czech Republic, but some have also ended up in places like Poland and even Ukraine. Taiwan is also increasing its exports of drone components too, like motors and optical equipment, as it positions itself as more a trustworthy and dependable alternative to China for democratic states wishing to invest in drone technology without sending their money straight to Beijing. As Michael Robbins, president of the Association for Uncrewed Vehicle Systems International, explains, Taiwan sits at the center of one of the most important industrial and strategic competitions of our time. It's one of the few places positioned to produce trusted drone components at scale. In other words, everything is already in place for Taiwan to become a leader in drone development, production, and warfare. It just needs to continue down the path it's already following, accelerating and enhancing the ideas and initiatives that are already in place in order to get itself ready for whatever comes next. It may be far smaller than its opponent, but Taiwan has many advantages. It has strong infrastructure, an incredible technology sector, powerful allies around the world, and even geography on its side. The fact that it's an island makes it much harder to invade than a place like Ukraine, for example, and it's one of the biggest reasons why China hasn't attacked already. Beijing has had to spend time and massive amounts of money building the world's biggest navy and developing its various missile programs to create a force that's actually capable of pulling off what would be one of the toughest amphibious assaults in modern military history. Thankfully, it still doesn't appear ready to invade just yet, and that means that Taiwan still has time to ramp up its drone production, train its unmanned systems operators, and put the pieces of Hellscape in place. If it can achieve all that, there's every chance that Taipei can emulate Kyiv and pull off a David versus Goliath victory for the ages. And Taiwan's growing mastery of drone warfare isn't the only thing Xi Jinping needs to worry about. China also needs to contend with the full fury of the American military machine, which grows stronger by the day, which you can learn about in this video. Alternatively, for more military news from the Far East, check out this video, which looks at how North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un may have acquired unprecedented leverage over his Chinese counterpart. And finally, don't forget to subscribe to The Military Show for more breaking news and insightful analysis of the latest big military stories from around the world.